Hello, everybody, and welcome to this pre-recorded Durham Book Festival event, Sleep Stories and the Science of Sleep. I'm Diletta De Cristofaro, and I lead Writing the Sleep Crisis, a research project exploring sleep in contemporary culture that has collaborated with Durham Book Festival on the Sleep Stories Commission. So I'm really excited to chat all things sleep with you, but I wanted to start from Salena and your wonderful sleep story, Daffodilly Dreams. And I wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about how the short story was born, what inspirations you had, and how you approached the commission.
Okay. Well, I wanted to try and explore the way we dream and the way that someone else can have the same dream. I also wanted to look into déjà vu and that very eerie sense of having been somewhere before, or that sense of foreboding. In the story, a woman keeps dreaming about the same guy and dreaming about a horrific accident in a burning building and a lift, being stuck in a lift, the idea of being stuck in a lift. And then in the other side of the city, a guy is dreaming the same story. And then and then the third part of the story is it dream, or is it a mixture of their dreams, or is it a reality, or did they see the future, or were they reliving trauma, the way the subconscious might relive trauma and play it back to us in our dreams. So I was kind of playing with all of that on lots of levels. It was a very trippy little story, but I really enjoyed writing it.
So I want to ask our two sleep experts, so one a neuroscientist and one a psychologist of sleep, what they make of this. So what their respective disciplines, how these disciplines understand this kind of mix of trauma, déjà vu, and how they might actually shape our dreams. And Jason, is that okay if I start with you?
Absolutely. I think, Salena, that's a beautiful description. And you contextualized it wonderfully well. You know, we know from the work of Rosalind Cartwright that our dream is a function of what goes on around us. And we can have traumatic dreaming patterns, which can determine whether somebody's going to get over the trauma and how quickly they're going to get over the trauma by the different things that they incorporate into the dreams, how they navigate different personalities and people in their dreams. So we know that people with insomnia dream differently to normal sleeping people. People who have had trauma or going through divorce, they also dream differently. And depending upon the people involved, there was some great work which really demonstrated how you dream about those people actually determines how quickly you get over it, and your levels of depression and anxiety associated. So I think, Salena, you've got it. You got it.
Thank you.
And actually, if I can follow up with you, Erik, because I know that you recently published a paper about this new theory of why we dream, called the Overfitted brain hypothesis. And I also know, which I find incredibly fascinating, that you came to this theory by thinking about the purpose of fiction alongside the purpose of dreams. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about this theory and these kind of parallels between fiction and dreams.
Sure, absolutely. One of the very strange things, like as a fiction author myself and someone who grew up in my mother's independent bookstore, I'm surrounded by stories. Of course, those are kind of unquestionable. But as a scientist, I have to look at them and be like, what exactly are we gaining from reading more about Harry Potter? Like, Harry Potter doesn't exist. Nothing that happens at Hogwarts is real. Right? They're all technically lies. And yet humans are fascinated by, these questions of what's going to happen in this imaginary world. Right. And that's a very, very strange thing. And I realized that probably to try to answer that question, is there anything in biology that looks a lot like that? And the answer is dreams. It seems as if evolution figures out at some point that it wants an inner narrative. Or it's almost as if evolution implanted this little fabulous inside the mind of each and every mammal, like a little Kafka, a little Borges, just there to kind of spin out this little dream every night, which is very strange. Why would it do that? Evolution likes to select for things that are functional. So maybe actually the very strangeness of dreams hints at their function. If you look at the way that people now train artificial neural networks, like deep learning networks, they do this thing called data augmentation, which is that you have a limited set of data, and to prevent your network from learning the set of data too well, you add in these weird distortions or hallucinations, or you drop out big parts of it. And that really actually seems to assist and generalize the learning. And so I thought, well, maybe what's actually going on is that evolution figured this out, and that stories are wonderful ways for us to depart from our kind of daily waking lives, which are generally very repetitive and which our brains are just going to be trying to memorize because you can't turn off learning, right? And then when you're exposed to something that's very, very different, that actually really helps out your mental models and your mental functions. It helps you generalize. So maybe kind of the strangeness of fictions is their purpose, and maybe fictions are acting as artificial dreams. We do have a dream drive wherein if you don't dream, then you will, the next day, you'll actually dream more to make up for that, right? So it's homeostatic. So it's very possible that, authors are kind of running around and they're in the business of creating these artificial dreams, and people are naturally attracted to them because we kind of know that our brains need this sort of thing. At least that's one somewhat fanciful hypothesis.
That's wonderful. I mean, this idea of fiction as artificial dreams is beautiful. I mean, what do you make of this, Salena? Does it kind of resonate with how you might think of fiction, poetry?
I knew this was important work. No, I really like the idea of that. These are sort of artificial dreams.
We're starting to understand that the states of dreams and wakefulness are not singular. You can sometimes be awake and asleep. You can sometimes be in two different stages of sleep will collide with each other. And that's where we're starting to see a lot of the disorders that we have. Some people wake up and they're still in a state of paralysis, but they're fully conscious. And we know from that is generally that REM and wake have collided, and they're fighting for who's going to come out on top. But the other thing, Salena, you talked about was the almost lucid dreaming thing, which we don't know an awful lot about. But I mean, some of the work that we've done is demonstrating that it's a very hybrid state. It's not wakefulness, it's not sleep. When you look at someone's brain, it seems to be like a very deep meditation. Almost somebody is in a complete form of mindfulness, that they are also being able to identify they're in a dream and then control the dream, which is fantastic. And sometimes we think, should we be teaching people to access that more readily, to become more creative?
That would be amazing. I'd be the first to sign up to go to astral planing school. I'd love that. That would be amazing.